If aliens were to study humanity, who would they take away? This human-centered sleep aid video cost the creator half an hour. You can like and save it. Find a comfortable position to sleep. The universe is vast and boundless. If there were no aliens, it would be simply too boring. But have you ever thought about it? If aliens really came to Earth and wanted to deeply understand the human species, what kind of people would they choose as their subjects of study? This sounds like an absurd question. But when we truly begin to think about it, you will find that behind this question lies the deepest secret about ourselves. An alien spaceship from a distant galaxy silently lands on Earth. They possess technology far surpassing humanity's, able to cross light years of distance to come to our planet. They have only one purpose: to study humanity. But the problem is, with over 8 billion people living in the vast universe, they cannot possibly take everyone away. So, how would they choose? Would they choose the smartest scientists? Or would they seek out the most unique individuals? Those who in some aspects are completely different from the vast majority of humans? Are you ready? Let's begin this wondrous journey. Let's start with a special group of people. Those who still live in isolated primitive tribes today. Imagine, deep in the Amazon rainforest, high in the mountains of New Guinea, in the dense jungles of Central Africa, live certain human groups with almost no contact with the outside world. Their way of life is not much different from their ancestors tens of thousands of years ago. Hunting and gathering, striking stones and rubbing wood for fire. These scenes that to us belong to ancient eras are the entirety of their daily lives. If you were an alien, wanting to study the origins of human civilization, what would you do? Would you carefully read human history books? Would you analyze those skyscrapers, the internet, or nuclear weapons? No. You would want to find the most primitive samples, because only the most primitive samples can tell you what this species originally looked like. The people in primitive tribes are like the living fossils of human civilization. Anthropologists, in their research on primitive peoples, have repeatedly proven how valuable such cultural comparisons are. The formal customs of a certain tribe might be 90% identical to neighboring tribes. Yet it is precisely the deviation in the core institutional arrangements, no matter how small a percentage it makes up of the whole, that could steer the future of that people into a unique direction. What does this mean? It means that although primitive tribes and modern civilization seem worlds apart, the fundamental elements making up human society, blood relations, territorial awareness, chiefdom systems, and distribution methods are essentially connected. If aliens study a few primitive tribes, they can understand the underlying logic of human society. More importantly, these primitive tribes are the only group in human history that has not been contaminated by modern civilization. They naturally control many variables, making them golden samples for sociological investigation. Some scholars view primitive tribes as the infancy of human civilization, discovering our past selves through them. Other scholars focus on comparative research, attempting to distinguish the impact of biological and cultural factors on humans. Do you want to know how humans organized society before writing, before currency, and before cars? Then go look at a primitive tribe. Want to understand why our ancestors chose communal living? Why they developed language? Why they had totem worship? The answers are right there. So, if aliens want to study the origins and evolution of humanity, the elders and priests in primitive tribes would definitely be their priority targets. These people hold the most ancient knowledge. They know how to communicate with deities in the most primitive ways. They remember every legend and taboo of the tribe. They are the last channel for humanity's dialogue with antiquity. Let's continue our thought experiment. Suppose you have collected enough samples from primitive tribes. Now you want to understand human thought more deeply. And you know language is the carrier of thought. To understand how a species thinks, you must study their language. Did you know? There are currently about over 7,000 languages spoken in the world. But UNESCO warns that by the end of this century, half of the world's languages may die out. This means that on average, every 2 weeks, a language disappears from this world forever. Every endangered language may contain a unique possibility of human cognitive styling. Endangered languages. In theoretical linguistics research, philosophy of language research, and linguistic typology research, harbor immense linguistic value. In areas like human cultural knowledge, human history, and human cognitive patterns, they hold significant cultural value. The disappearance of every endangered language is like a fire in a library. We forever lose a certain way of looking at the world. For example, in the Amazon rainforest, there is a tribe called the Piaroa. In the language they use, there are dozens of words describing plants. Every single word corresponds to a specific plant species and their uses. Scientists found that children learning these words have an understanding of plants that is far deeper than children using other languages. This means that within the Piaroa language lies a unique way of understanding the world, a way we are about to lose forever. If you were an alien, what would you be interested in? Of course, those unique, unreplicable things that represent infinite possibilities. The inheritors of endangered languages are exactly such a group. In each of their minds resides a unique form of human wisdom. There is a Peruvian dialect called Ayapanico. It is said that only a few people can still speak it. There is an old grandmother who is one of the last native speakers of this language. She is already in her 90s this year. When she closes her eyes, she tells stories of her grandmother using a method that no other language can accurately translate. When describing an action, she uses 3 tenses simultaneously: past, present, and future, as if time in her language is something that can be experienced concurrently. This mode of thinking cannot be found in any dictionary, cannot be learned in any textbook. It is fading away, second by second, along with her heartbeat. So, researchers of endangered languages, and those who master these vanishing languages, must be the ultimate research treasures in the eyes of aliens. Because they represent the boundaries of human wisdom, representing the limits of human possibilities. When you lose a person, what you lose might not just be a talking body. What you lose is a unique life experience, a unique way of understanding the world, a unique universe of stories. These things can never be created a second time. Now, you have understood the basic structure of human society and its modes of thinking. Next, you want to delve deeper into what humans are, where humans come from, how life was born on Earth, and how the forces of evolution shaped us. Where are the answers? They lie with those scientists studying the origins of life. Imagine, there is a group of people who spend their entire lives asking one fundamental question: what is life? They are biologists, paleontologists, molecular geneticists. They study fossils, analyze DNA, culture cells, calculate the evolutionary timeline. Their goal is only one: to understand exactly where we come from. If you were an alien, and you wanted to study the biological foundations of humans, what would you do? You would start from the simplest. You would want to know who the ancestors of this species are, how they evolved from other organisms, which species they share common ancestors with, and what ancient imprints they carry within them. Paleontologists are like detectives of time. They look for fossils in rocks, look for clues in fossils, and look for stories in clues. When on the lands of East Africa, they unearthed the 3.2 million year old skeleton of Australopithecus afarensis. Lucy. They discovered more than just a skeleton. They discovered a bridge connecting ancient and modern times. Through studying Lucy, They understood the origins of human bipedalism, understood how our ancestors came down from the trees to the ground. Molecular biologists explore the secrets of life in another way. They study DNA, study genes, study the molecular mechanisms that make us human. When they discovered that the genetic similarity between humans and chimpanzees is as high as 98%, they understood humanity's relationship with other organisms in nature. When they discovered that certain genes underwent unique mutations in humans, they began to understand what made us human. These scientists hold the deepest secrets of life. They know how life appeared in the oceans 3.8 billion years ago, how it crawled onto land 500 million years ago, how it survived the catastrophe 66 million years ago, how about 7 million years ago we started to part ways with chimpanzees. They know the origin of every cell in our bodies, know that the salts flowing in our blood are identical to the composition of ancient oceans. They know how our immune system was formed through millions of years of evolution. So, if aliens want to understand the human body, to understand the mysteries of life, scientists studying the human genome, and those paleontologists who discovered the first tetrapods to step onto land, must definitely be their most desired research subjects. In the minds of these people resides a complete epic of life. Now, we arrive at another completely different dimension. When you have understood humanity's past, and want to understand humanity's future, where would you cast your gaze? The answer is the starry sky. If aliens want to study a species' ambitions and dreams, they would focus on those who look up at the stars. Astronomers, aerospace engineers, cosmologists, those dedicated to answering where we come from, where we are going, and whether we are alone in the universe. The people answering these ultimate questions. Imagine an alien civilization from a distant galaxy. They crossed countless light years to come here, and the very first human they encounter is actually building something called a telescope, trying to use this primitive equipment to peer into the secrets of the universe. What do you think they would think? They would definitely be curious. The ambition of this species is much greater than they imagined. Yes, from the moment the first eye opened at the bottom of the Cambrian Sea, life has always been marching towards the light. Darwin, in his notebook, drew the first tree of life. Kepler used mathematical formulas to describe planetary orbits. Galileo pointed his telescope at Jupiter's moons. Einstein redefined space-time with relativity. Humanity has never stopped exploring the universe, never stopped questioning the unknown. In the 1960s, astronomers started building radio telescopes, attempting to receive signals from deep space. In 1977, scientists received a mysterious signal. Wow! But even to this day, no one knows where it came from. Humanity has launched the Voyager space probes into the universe. They carry a golden record, recording the sounds of Earth, images of humanity, and our mathematical and scientific knowledge. They are currently crossing the boundaries of the solar system, flying towards the depths of the Milky Way. The SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, project has been ongoing for 60 years. In these 60 years, humanity has been listening to every corner of the universe, trying to find even the slightest trace of an artificial signal. Although no conclusive evidence has been found to date, humanity has never given up. If you were an alien, what would you be interested in? Would you be interested in an alien civilization? That is, yourself? No. You would be interested in the curiosity of this species. This question itself is the answer. If a species, without any practical benefits, still expends massive resources to explore the universe, to search for other civilizations that might not even exist, what does that mean? It means this species has a unique spirit. A spirit that transcends the material, pursuing meaning. Astronomers hold the deepest knowledge about the universe. They know the age of the universe is 13.7 billion years. Know that there are over 200 billion stars in the Milky Way. Know the universe is expanding at an accelerating rate. Know that the fate of the universe might be one of cold and darkness. They also know that humanity is the only life form known in the universe that knows the age of the universe. So those who study the universe, those who explore space, those who search for extraterrestrial civilizations, the value of these people is not just their knowledge, but even more so their spirit. Because they represent the noblest side of humanity, never satisfied with the known, always yearning to explore the unknown. You've already understood humanity's origins, body, and ambitions. But there is another dimension you must study, human memory. You would ask yourself, what would a species be without memory? They wouldn't know where they came from, wouldn't know what mistakes they had made, wouldn't know what glories they had achieved. A species without memory is like a life without a diary, muddled and confused, never able to learn from past experiences. So, aliens would definitely be interested in human historians, archivists, and librarians. The work of these people is to preserve human memory. Imagine, beneath Paris, there is a place called the French National Archives. In the basements there, all important documents from the French Revolution to the present are preserved. In England's Winchester Cathedral, centuries of wedding records and tombstone inscriptions are kept. In the National Library of Israel in Jerusalem, humanity's earliest religious scriptures and oldest maps are preserved. Historians don't just record the past, they also interpret the past. They try to reconstruct a complete picture from fragmented documents, find patterns from scattered events, and awaken living wisdom from dead texts. Thucydides recorded the Peloponnesian War, allowing us to understand the eternal struggle between power and fear in human nature. Sima Qian, enduring humiliation, wrote the records of the grand historian, allowing us to understand the origins of Chinese civilization. Livy wrote the history of Rome, allowing us to understand the laws of the rise and fall of empires. The work of archivists is more obscure, but equally important. They collect, organize, and preserve those everyday documents that might be forgotten by everyone. An inconspicuous shopping list might record how an ancient economy operated. A faded family letter might reveal the true living conditions of ordinary people during a certain historical period. A court verdict might record humanity's long journey in pursuit of justice. If you were an alien, what would you do? Would you spend time studying the history of human wars? Would you study their political systems? Would you study their economic development? Perhaps all of the above. But more importantly, you would study how they remember their own past, how they learn from past mistakes, and how they pass the seeds of their culture to the next generation. Because you know that a species' attitude towards memory determines how far that species can go. Memory allows experience to accumulate, allows wisdom to be inherited, and allows civilization to continue. A species that loses its memory is like a tree cut off from its history, no matter how tall it grows. It can never understand where its roots lie. So, those who guard human memory, historians, archivists, librarians, recorders of oral history, their value is vastly underestimated. They are not just dealing with the past, they are protecting humanity's future. Let us enter an even more wondrous domain, the world of art. If aliens have already understood human social structures, language, biology, and history, what would they study next? The answer is human emotion and aesthetics. And those who can best represent human emotion and aesthetics are artists, musicians, painters, poets, dancers, sculptors. You might ask, why artists? Don't scientists better represent the heights of human wisdom? This is a very good question. The answer is, scientists tell us what the world is. Artists tell us how the world feels. And how it feels is precisely the hardest to quantify. the hardest part to replicate. Imagine. An alien hears Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. When the choir sings, "Joy," beautiful spark of divinity, what do they feel? Can they understand why humans shed tears? Can they understand why this piece is called the pinnacle work of the musical saint? What is music? Music is something that directly acts upon emotions. A melody can remind you of a certain afternoon in childhood. A rhythm can make you uncontrollably want to dance. A chord can make you feel deep sorrow or indescribable joy. Scientists still cannot fully explain why certain combinations of sounds can evoke human emotional responses. But artists can precisely manipulate these responses. Beethoven, after going deaf, wrote the Ninth Symphony. Van Gogh painted The Starry Night in a mental asylum. Liu Xuan wrote Call to Arms in the dead of night. They took the deepest pain, the most passionate desires, the most complex emotions, and transformed them into forms that everyone can understand. Their works are the most direct expressions of the human soul. Painters use colors and lines to express things that cannot be described with words. When you look at the Mona Lisa, what do you see? Is it a woman's smile? No. You see humanity's curiosity about beauty, the pursuit of mystery, the desire for eternity. When you look at Van Gogh's Sunflowers, what you see is not a few flowers. What you see is a lonely man's love for life amidst despair. Poets construct another universe with words. Moonlight before my bed. Perhaps frost on the ground. Li Bai, with just 20 characters, depicted a night full of poetry. The dark night gave me dark eyes, yet I use them to search for light. Ji Yu Cheng, with a sonnet-like poem, expressed the spiritual pursuit of an entire generation. Poetry is the essence of language, is the high concentration of emotion, is the high refinement of wisdom. So if aliens want to understand humanity's deepest emotions, they would certainly study artists. They would want to know why humans spend vast amounts of time and energy to create things with no practical use. They would want to know why a composer can spend months writing a symphony. Why a painter can spend years painting a single picture. Why a poet can ponder over a single sentence for a whole day. What is the answer? It is because these creations themselves are the meaning. In the process of creating beauty, humanity found the value of existence. In the process of appreciating beauty, humanity found the joy of life. Beauty is not the goal. Beauty is everything. Next, let us turn our gaze to another dimension, time. If aliens wanted to study a human lifetime, from birth to death, from youth to old age, what would they do? They would seek out those who have experienced a complete life, centenarians. In their bodies, a century of human history is recorded. In their memories, humanity's truest past is stored. Imagine, in a remote mountain village in China, lives a 103-year-old grandmother. When she was born, the Xinhai Revolution had just broken out. The Qing dynasty had just ended. When she was young, she experienced the war of resistance against Japanese aggression, hiding in a cave every day watching her village being bombed. She married 3 times, each time she lost her husband due to war or disease. She witnessed the founding of New China with her own eyes, witnessed reform and opening up with her own eyes, and watched with her own eyes as her children and grandchildren went from poverty and hunger to a well-off life. Her body is a living history book. Every one of her wrinkles records the impact of a certain historical event. Every time she got sick and recovered reflects the medical standards of that era. Every decision she made, who to marry, where to live, how to educate which child, was profoundly influenced by the historical background. If you were an alien, and you wanted to understand the impact of time on humans, what would you do? You would study those who have lived long lives, how their bodies age, how their memories change, how they face the approach of death, how they, at the end of their lives, Review their entire existence. Centenarians are witnesses to time. They watch the world go from war-torn to peaceful and prosperous. From the carriage era to the internet era. From the letter era to the video era. They have experienced some of the most dramatic changes in human history. They know what yesterday looked like. They are experiencing today. They might not see tomorrow. But their existence itself is the most precious history book. There is another kind of person aliens would definitely be particularly interested in: those who specialize in collecting oral history. Among the common people, there are many such storytellers. They are illiterate, but their minds contain hundreds of stories, thousands of folk songs, countless pieces of folk wisdom. They are living libraries, breathing archives. When a 90-year-old elder tells the stories he heard his grandfather tell when he was a child, he is actually passing on humanity's earliest information. Those stories might have circulated for thousands of years. They traversed wars, disasters, migrations, dynastic changes, and finally arrived at today. Inside every story hides humanity's earliest way of life and its most ancient spiritual pursuits. So, centenarians, story transmitters. They are not just living their own lives, they are guarding humanity's temporal memory. We have arrived at the final dimension, human consciousness itself. If aliens want to study human thought, consciousness, and self-awareness, what would they do? They would seek out those who specifically study the brain: neuroscientists, cognitive psychologists, artificial intelligence researchers. Because the work of these people is to understand humanity's most mysterious organ, the brain. You might not know this. The brain is the organ in our body we understand the least. We know how the heart works. We know how the lungs work. We know how the liver works. But what about the brain? Humanity's understanding of the brain might be even less than its understanding of the universe. Imagine. There are 100 billion nerve cells, each one with complex connections to thousands of other cells, forming an incredibly vast network. This network produces consciousness, thought, emotion, the self. This network allows you to read these words, allows you to think these thoughts, allows you to imagine a world that doesn't even exist. This is the brain, the most complex thing in the known universe. Neuroscientists are trying to crack this mystery. They use functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, to observe which areas of the brain become active when thinking. They use electrodes to stimulate specific neurons to see what happens. They study patients with brain damage to understand the functions of different regions. Their goal is to understand how the brain produces consciousness. What is consciousness? Why am I me and not someone else? Why is it that when I open my eyes, what I feel is a unified, continuous world that belongs to me? Why can't I enter your consciousness and feel your feelings? These questions are the final frontier of science. And those dedicated to answering these questions, neuroscientists, cognitive psychologists, psychiatrists, philosophers, their value is immeasurable. There is also another group of people aliens would definitely be very interested in: artificial intelligence researchers. These people are trying to create machines that are equivalent to human intelligence or surpass human intelligence. Are they creating a new life form? Are they opening Pandora's box? Are they opening the door to immortality for humanity? No one knows the answer. But one thing is certain: artificial intelligence researchers are exploring the essence of human intelligence. Through their research on machine intelligence, they are understanding the principles of human intelligence. Their work might radically alter humanity's understanding of itself. So, if aliens wanted to understand human consciousness, understand the mysteries of thought, understand what the self is, they would definitely seek out those who study the brain and artificial intelligence. Because the work of these people touches the deepest core of human existence. Actually, what aliens are most interested in might not be the most powerful people. Not the wealthiest people, but rather those with unique value. They would choose people from primitive tribes, because these people represent the origins of human civilization. They would choose inheritors of endangered languages, because these people represent the diversity of human thought patterns. They would choose scientists who study life, because these people hold the deepest secrets of life. They would choose astronomers looking up at the stars, because these people represent humanity's noblest pursuits. They would choose historians guarding memories, because these people protect humanity's time. They would choose artists, because these people express humanity's deepest emotions. They would choose centenarians, because these people have witnessed the passage of time. They would choose scientists studying the brain, because these people are exploring the final frontier of consciousness. Good night. May you meet the stars in your dreams?